In Britain, a London police officer has been sentenced to life in prison for the kidnap, rape and murder of a young woman. In a case that has caused anguish across the UK, a court heard how PC Wayne Couzens pretended to arrest Sarah Everard and used his police handcuffs to kidnap her from the streets as she walked home from a friend's house.
March 3rd, 2021, 9:34 p.m. Poynders Road, South London. Two bus cameras recording. A white car. Hazard lights flashing. A woman in a green jacket walking toward it. A man steps out. He points to his belt. Metal glints. A police badge. She stops. He produces handcuffs. Click. Left wrist. Click. Right wrist. She gets in the car. A couple drives past. The woman sees it happening. She thinks, police officer making an arrest. They keep driving. This isn't an arrest. This is an abduction. The woman is Sarah Everard. The man, a serving Metropolitan Police officer. In 80 miles, Sarah will be dead. And this officer? He'd been reported for sexual crimes for 20 years. 3 police forces knew. 3 police forces did nothing. If you're into true crime cases that leave you with more questions than answers, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Now, let us get into it. Sarah Everard was born in 1987. In Surrey, England. She grew up in York, North Yorkshire, where she attended Fulford School. She studied human geography at St. Cuthbert's Society, Durham University, graduating in 2008. By 2021, she worked as a marketing executive for a digital media agency in London. Sarah lived in the Brixton Hill area of South London. She had a boyfriend, Josh Loth. She had close friends across the city. She was 33 years old. On March 3rd, 2021, Sarah visited a friend in Clapham. The friend lived on Leithwaite Road, near Clapham Junction, west of Clapham Common. Sarah spent the evening there. It was an ordinary social visit. At approximately 9 p.m., Sarah left to walk home. The distance from Clapham to Brixton Hill was roughly 50 minutes on foot. She chose the A205 South Circular Road as her route. And this was a main road, well lit, heavily trafficked, lined with homes and businesses. Shortly after leaving, Sarah called Josh Loth. The call lasted 15 minutes. They discussed ordinary things and made plans to meet on March 4th. The call ended around 9:15 p.m. Sarah continued walking. At 9:28 p.m., a doorbell camera on Poynders Road in Balham captured Sarah walking alone at a normal pace. Nothing appeared unusual. At 9:32 p.m., a Metropolitan Police patrol car drove past Sarah on the same road. The dashcam recorded her walking. The officers inside continued their patrol. At 9:34 p.m., 2 bus cameras captured Sarah's final moments of freedom. A white Vauxhall Crossland was parked on Poynders Road with hazard lights flashing. A man in dark clothing approached Sarah. He showed her a Metropolitan Police warrant card. He handcuffed her as she got into the vehicle. A couple driving on the A205 witnessed this. The passenger saw a man standing behind a woman, handcuffing her. The witness concluded it was an undercover police officer making a legitimate arrest. They drove on. Sarah Everard had done everything right. She stayed on main roads. She remained visible. She was careful. None of it mattered. Wayne Couzens was born December 20th, 1972, in Dover, Kent. He attended Castle Mount School and worked as a mechanic in his family's garage after completing his education. In 2002, he joined Kent Police as a special constable. By March 3rd, 2021, Couzens was a serving Metropolitan Police officer. He worked in the Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Command. He was authorized to carry firearms. He guarded the United States Embassy in London. On the morning of March 3rd, Couzens worked a 12-hour shift at the US Embassy, finishing at 7 a.m. After his shift ended, he traveled to Dover, Kent. On February 28th, 4 days earlier, Couzens had booked a white Vauxhall Crossland from a car rental company in Dover. He also purchased a carpet protector product on Amazon that same day. At 4:45 p.m. on March 3rd, Couzens collected the rental car. He then drove from Kent to London. Between 5 p.m. and 9:30 p.m., automatic number plate recognition cameras recorded his vehicle at multiple locations: Earl's Court, Battersea Bridge, and the Clapham area. He drove to Earl's Court, then back to Clapham, arriving at 9:23 p.m. Couzens parked on Poynders Road. He turned on the hazard lights. He waited. At 9:34 p.m., he approached Sarah Everard on foot. Couzens used his Metropolitan Police warrant card to stop Sarah. He claimed she was violating COVID-19 lockdown restrictions. COVID enforcement was active across London in March 2021. The pretext was believable. Sarah complied with what appeaed to be a lawful police action. After handcuffing Sarah and placing her in the vehicle, Couzens drove away from Poynders Road. ANPR cameras tracked the white Vauxhall travelling from South London toward Kent. The journey was approximately 80 miles, following the M20 and A20 routes. Cell tower data from Couzens' mobile phone corroborated the route. His device connected to towers in Clapham during the abduction, then to towers progressively southeast as he drove toward Dover. The technology designed to track criminals was now tracking a police officer transporting his victim. Investigators reviewed CCTV footage from multiple sources. The doorbell camera showing Sarah at 9:28 p.m. on Poynders Road was released publicly on March 6th. The police dashcam from 9:32 p.m. showed Sarah walking 4 minutes before the abduction. The critical evidence came from bus cameras at 9:34 p.m. Two cameras captured different angles of the same scene: a white Vauxhall Crossland with hazard lights, a man in dark clothing approaching Sarah, handcuffs being applied, Sarah entering the vehicle. A NPR analysis identified the white Vauxhall Crossland in the Poynders Road area at the relevant time. The same vehicle was tracked, leaving London and travelling to Kent. Investigators traced the registration to a rental company in Dover. When police contacted the rental company, they received the renter's name: Wayne Couzens. Occupation: police officer. Employer: Metropolitan Police Service. Cell tower analysis showed Couzens' phone in Clapham at the time of the abduction, then moving southeast toward Kent, then in the Ashford area in the early hours of March 4th. Bank records showed the car rental payment, fuel purchases matching the timeline, and a B&Q purchase on March 4th. On March 9th, 2021, 6 days after Sarah's disappearance, police arrested Wayne Couzens at his home in Deal, Kent. Approximately 40 minutes before police arrived, Couzens attempted to wipe data from his mobile phone. Couzens was initially charged with kidnapping Sarah Everard. The ANPR data placed his rental car at the abduction scene. Cell tower data placed his phone in Clapham at 9:34 p.m. A bus camera footage showed a man matching his description handcuffing a woman matching Sarah's description. During his first interview, Couzens claimed he was forced by a gang to kidnap Sarah and hand her over to them. Investigators found no evidence supporting this claim. The ANPR data showed his car driving directly from London to Kent, with no stops suggesting a handover. On March 10th at 4:20 p.m., police searching Hodes Wood near Ashford found human remains in a large builder's bag, approximately 100 meters from land Couzens had access to. On the evening of March 10th, Metropolitan Police Commissioner Dame Cressida Dick confirmed that human remains had been found in woodland in Kent. She confirmed that a serving Metropolitan Police officer had been arrested on suspicion of murder. Couzens' name was released to news organizations. Wayne Couzens was arrested on suspicion of murder on March 10th. The kidnapping charge remained active. On March 12, 2021, dental records confirmed the remains found in Hodes Wood were Sarah Everard. Detective Chief Superintendent Nick F. Grave made a statement at New Scotland Yard confirming the identification.
A serving police constable has tonight been charged with the kidnap and murder of Sarah Everard. Wayne Couzens, aged 48, has been remanded in custody and will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court tomorrow morning. Sarah's family, of course, have been informed of this development and remain supported by specialist officers. I would like at this stage to pay tribute to Sarah's family for their fortitude and forbearance.
Sarah's family were notified before the public announcement. Specialist family liaison officers supported them. Between March 12th and 16th, police continued searching. They examined the rope walk in Sandwich, a cordoning of approximately 1 square mile. Police divers searched underwater for Sarah's mobile phone. They searched a site in Dover at the top of the White Cliffs where Couzens' family had previously owned a body repair garage. Forensic examination of the rental car revealed traces of Sarah's presence. Hair fibers and DNA evidence were found despite Couzens' attempts to clean the vehicle. Couzens' police issue belt was examined. Fibers found on the belt matched fibers from Sarah's clothing. The belt showed signs consistent with use as a ligature. On June 1st, 2021, post-mortem examination results were released. The pathologist's report stated Sarah Everard's cause of death was compression of the neck. The Metropolitan Police released a statement confirming this and noting that specialist officers continued supporting Sarah's family. Prosecutor Tom Little QC assembled the case. They had CCTV showing the abduction, ANPR, and cell data tracking the journey, forensic evidence placing Sarah in Couzens' rental car, the murder weapon, and the body. Couzens' defense team, led by Jim Sturman, QC, faced overwhelming evidence. On June 8th, 2021, Wayne Couzens appeared at the Old Bailey in London before Lord Justice Adrian Fulford. He was charged with kidnapping and raping Sarah Everard. Wayne Couzens pleaded guilty to both charges. The guilty pleas meant Sarah's family would be spared. Detailed trial evidence about the sexual assault. No trial would be needed for these charges. On July 9th, 2021, Couzens returned to the Old Bailey. He faced the murder charge. Wayne Couzens pleaded guilty to murdering Sarah Everard. With the guilty pleas to all charges, the case proceeded directly to sentencing without trial. Outside the Old Bailey, Metropolitan Police Commissioner Dame Cressida Dick stated that Couzens' crimes were dreadful and everyone in policing felt betrayed. She described Sarah as a fantastic, talented young woman with her whole life ahead of her. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for September 29th and 30th, 2021. The prosecution would present the full facts. Sarah's family would provide victim impact statements. The defense would present arguments for sentencing. Lord Justice Fulford would determine the punishment. Between July and September, the prosecution prepared to present aggravating factors. Couzens' use of his position as a police officer, the extensive planning, the prolonged suffering inflicted on Sarah, and the fundamental betrayal of public trust. The defense prepared to argue for a life sentence with the possibility of eventual parole, rather than a whole life order that would guarantee Couzens died in prison. On September 29th, the sentencing hearing began. Tom Little QC outlined the timeline of the crime. He explained how Couzens spent at least a month planning, traveling between Kent and London, researching how to carry out a violent sexual assault on a victim yet to be selected. Little described how Couzens finished his US embassy shift at 7 a.m. on March 3rd. Collected the rental car at 4:45 p.m., drove to London, and spent hours circling neighborhoods looking for a lone woman. He detailed the abduction using bus camera footage and witness testimony. On September 29th, 2021, Sarah Everard's family provided victim impact statements to the court. Susan Everard, Sarah's mother, described the unbearable pain of losing her daughter. She stated she constantly replays the sequence of events in her mind. She wondered when Sarah realized she was in mortal danger. Jeremy Everard, Sarah's father, spoke about Sarah's life, her talents, and the future stolen from her. He described how family gatherings would never be the same. Sarah's siblings, Katie and James, provided statements about losing their sister. They described her as not just family, but a friend and confident. The family issued a collective statement. They stated it was obvious Wayne Couzens should never have been a police officer, as they noted that warning signs were overlooked throughout his career and opportunities to confront him were missed. They emphasized that while holding a position of trust, he was in reality a serial sex offender. The family stated Sarah died because Couzens was a police officer. She would never have got into a stranger's car. Jim Sturman QC presented the defense case. His presentation lasted approximately 20 minutes. Sturman argued that Couzens was filled with self-loathing and shame. He emphasized that the guilty pleas spared Sarah's family the ordeal of a trial. The defense requested a life sentence with a determinate tariff, asking that Couzens might become eligible for parole when in his 80s, rather than a whole life order. The first day of the sentencing hearing concluded with these presentations complete. Tom Little had presented the prosecution case. Sarah's family had described their loss. Jim Sturman had argued for leniency. Lord Justice Adrian Fulford would deliver his sentence on September 30th, 2021. The decision would determine whether Couzens received a whole life order or a life sentence with possible future parole. On September 30th, 2021, Lord Justice Adrian Fulford delivered his sentencing remarks at the Old Bailey. The judge stated the crime was devastating, tragic, and wholly brutal. He identified the aggravating factors. First, extensive planning and premeditation. Couzens spent at least a month preparing, traveling between Kent and London, researching how to carry out a violent sexual assault. He rented a specific vehicle. He selected equipment. He planned evidence disposal. Second, the selection and stalking of the victim. Couzens drove around London on March 3rd, hunting for a lone female to kidnap and rape. Sarah Everard was not predetermined but was chosen when Couzens found her walking alone. Third, prolonged suffering. From abduction until death, Sarah endured terror and violence. The journey from London to Kent gave her time to understand what was happening. The rape occurred before the murder. Fourth, the vital factor, Couzens' abuse of his position as a police officer. Justice Fulford stated this use of police authority to detain Sarah Everard made the seriousness exceptionally high. The judge explained that police officers are granted extraordinary powers based on trust. Society trusts police will use these powers to protect people. When an officer uses his warrant card and handcuffs to commit crimes, the damage extends beyond the individual victim. Fulford compared the impact to terrorism. Both undermined fundamental structures holding society together. Couzens' crime had destroyed trust in policing. Women could no longer feel safe when approached by police officers. The judge noted Couzens' lack of genuine remorse, the lies about being forced by a gang, the attempts to destroy evidence, and the normal behavior after the murder showed no regret. Justice Fulford delivered the sentence: life imprisonment with a whole life order. Wayne Couzens would never be eligible for parole. He would die in prison. Wayne Couzens appeared via video link from prison. He showed no visible reaction. Outside the Old Bailey, the sentence was broadcast immediately. The whole life order was recognized as appropriate, though questions remained about how Couzens had been allowed to become a police officer. In October 2021, Wayne Couzens indicated he would appeal his whole life sentence. Under British law, defendants have the right to appeal sentences they believe are excessive. The appeal was formally lodged. A hearing was scheduled for July 2022. For 9 months, legal uncertainty remained. The whole life order stayed in place, but the possibility existed it might be reduced to a life sentence with a minimum term, after which Couzens could be considered for parole. In July 2022, the Court of Appeal heard arguments. The prosecution defended the original sentence, arguing Justice Fulford correctly identified the abuse of police authority as an aggravating factor, justifying a whole life order. They emphasized the damage to public trust in policing. The defense argued that British sentencing should preserve hope for rehabilitation, and that whole life orders should be reserved for the absolute worst cases, and that Couzens' crimes, while horrific, didn't reach that threshold. The Court of Appeal panel deliberated and rejected the appeal. The whole life order would stand. Wayne Couzens would spend the rest of his life in prison with no possibility of parole. The Court of Appeal's reasoning supported Justice Fulford's original analysis. The use of police authority to commit murder was an aggravating factor of exceptional seriousness. The damage to public confidence and the betrayal of trust elevated the case to the level requiring a whole life order. Wayne Couzens is imprisoned at HM Prison Franklin in County Durham, a Category A maximum security facility. Former police officers face high risk of violence from other inmates. Couzens is likely kept in a vulnerable prisoners unit. On May 22, 2021, Sarah Everard's funeral took place at Heslington Church in Heslington, near York, where she grew up. Family and close friends attended. The nation mourned with them. Wayne Couzens joined Kent Police as a special constable in 2002. In February 2007, he entered an individual voluntary arrangement, a legal mechanism for managing debt one step short of bankruptcy. In 2008, Couzens applied for a regular officer position with Kent Police and failed vetting. The Angiolini inquiry found his individual voluntary arrangement was likely the reason. Despite failing vetting for a regular officer position, Couzens was allowed to continue as a special constable with Kent Police with the same powers and ability to patrol independently. In March 2011, Couzens joined the Civil Nuclear Constabulary as an authorized firearms officer. The inquiry found the Civil Nuclear Constabulary put Couzens forward for national security vetting before receiving the force vetting recommendation from Thames Valley Police. As this procedural violation created information gaps, the 2015 indecent exposure investigation by Kent Police never resulted in the Civil Nuclear Constabulary being notified. Information sharing between forces was inadequate. Couzens continued as an armed officer guarding critical infrastructure. In 2018, Couzens transferred to the Metropolitan Police. Force vetting managers have discretion about re-vetting transferees from other forces. The inquiry found this discretion was exercised poorly. The Metropolitan Police accepted Couzens without fully examining his background or obtaining complete information from previous employers. In 2019, Couzens participated in a private WhatsApp group with other Metropolitan Police officers. The messages exchanged were homophobic, sexist, racist, and misogynistic, and these messages were discovered after Couzens' arrest. An incident occurred where a prostitute visited a police station demanding money from Couzens. Colleagues had to call him back from patrol. No record exists of any formal investigation or disciplinary action. Between February 14th and March 3rd, 2021, Couzens was under investigation for the McDonald's indecent exposure incidents. He remained on active duty as an armed Metropolitan Police officer. He continued to carry a firearm and guard sensitive locations. The investigation did not trigger workplace consequences or restriction of duties. Kent Police, the Civil Nuclear Constabulary, and the Metropolitan Police all employed Couzens and all missed opportunities to identify him as unsuitable. Within days of Sarah being reported missing, the case became national news. The organization Reclaim These Streets planned vigils for March 13, 2021, at locations across the country. The largest planned vigil was at Clapham Common, near where Sarah was taken. March 2021 was under COVID-19 lockdown restrictions. Mass gatherings were prohibited. The Metropolitan Police informed Reclaim These Streets that the vigil would break lockdown rules and could not proceed. Reclaim These Streets challenged this in court and lost. On the evening of March 13th, hundreds of women gathered at Clapham Common. They laid flowers, lit candles, and stood together. For a while, the gathering was peaceful. Police were present but not intervening. Then police moved in, citing COVID-19 restrictions. Officers physically removed women from the vigil, and the scenes were captured on cameras and shared across social media. One image went viral worldwide. Patsy Stevenson, a physics student, was held down on the ground by two male police officers while being handcuffed. The photograph became symbolic of the police response. 4 women were arrested for breaching COVID-19 regulations. They were taken to police stations, processed, and released. Metropolitan Police Commissioner Dame Cressida Dick defended the police response, stating officers made difficult decisions in challenging circumstances. She argued enforcing COVID-19 regulations was necessary for public health. Calls for Dame Cressida Dick to resign intensified. A YouGov poll found 38% of UK adults thought she should step down, 27% said she should stay, and 35% were unsure. In August of 2022, the Crown Prosecution Service discontinued the prosecutions of the 4 women arrested at the vigil. The charges were dropped. The women pursued civil claims against the Metropolitan Police. In September 2023, the Metropolitan Police agreed to pay substantial damages to the women. In March 2024, Jennifer Edmonds, another woman arrested at the vigil and detained overnight, received £10,000 in damages from the Metropolitan Police. Each settlement was an admission the policing of the vigil had been inappropriate. On March 6, 2023, Wayne Couzens appeared in court via video link from HM Prison Frankland for additional sentencing. He was charged with 3 counts of indecent exposure. The incidents were from November 2020, February 14, 2021, and February 27, 2021. The November 2020 incident occurred in a woodland area in Kent. Couzens was naked and masturbating. He stepped into the path of a female cyclist. The February 14, 2021 incident was the first McDonald's drive-through exposure on the A20 near Swanley. He exposed himself to staff. The February 27, 2021 incident was the second McDonald's exposure, occurring 4 days before Sarah Everard's murder. Wayne Couzens pleaded guilty to all 3 counts. He was sentenced to an additional 19 months imprisonment. This was symbolic, as he was already serving a whole life order and would never be released. The sentencing formally recognized the pattern of offending. The guilty pleas validated research on the progression of sex offenders from indecent exposure to more serious crimes. A 4th charge relating to a June 2015 indecent exposure incident was not proceeded with. Couzens had pleaded not guilty to this charge. 2 Metropolitan Police officers faced misconduct hearings for their handling of the February 2021 indecent exposure reports. The Independent Office for Police Conduct investigated how they dealt with Couzens' reports. The additional sentencing demonstrated that Couzens' crimes against Sarah Everard were not isolated. They were part of a 20-year pattern of sexual offending that multiple police forces failed to stop. He, with Women's Aid, issued a statement emphasizing the importance of taking indecent exposure seriously. They noted the horrific abduction, rape, and murder of Sarah showed what escalation could lead to when warning signs were ignored. The whole life order remained in effect. Wayne Couzens will die in prison. Sarah Everard was born in 1987 in Surrey, England. She grew up in York, where she attended Fulford School. She studied human geography at Durham University from 2005 to 2008. She worked as a marketing executive for a digital media agency. She lived in Brixton Hill. She was 33 years old when she died. On March 3, 2021, Sarah left a friend's house in Clapham to walk home to Brixton Hill. She chose the A205 South Circular Road, a well-lit main road. She called her boyfriend and made plans for the next day. At 9:34 p.m. on Poynders Road, Wayne Couzens, a serving Metropolitan Police officer, approached her. He used his warrant card to falsely arrest her for COVID-19 violations. He handcuffed her. She got into his car, trusting the badge. Couzens drove Sarah 80 miles to Kent. He raped her. He strangled her with his police-issue belt. He attempted to burn her body. He placed her remains in a pond in Hodes Wood. Wayne Couzens was arrested on March 9, 2021. He pleaded guilty to kidnapping, rape, and murder. On September 30, 2021, he received a whole life order. He will die in prison. The Angiolini inquiry found that Wayne Couzens should never have been a police officer. Evidence showed a 20-year pattern of sexual offending. He was reported for indecent exposure in 2015. He was reported again in February 2021, 4 days before murdering Sarah. 3 police forces employed him. All 3 missed opportunities to stop him. Lady Angiolini warned, without significant overhaul, there is nothing to stop another Couzens operating in plain sight. Sarah's family stated, Sarah died because Couzens was a police officer, or she would never have got into a stranger's car. Sarah Everard did everything right. She stayed on main roads. She remained visible. She was careful. She trusted the badge. And that trust killed her. The 16 Angiolini recommendations provide a path forward. Implementation determines whether Sarah's death leads to meaningful change or becomes another tragedy that prompted temporary concern but no lasting reform. Rest in peace, Sarah Everard.